Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Tennessee Potters Society meeting. My goal when I first envisioned this was just what I saw right now. Everyone came in early, you're visiting, you're meeting friends, chatting with each other. It was really nice to standing here watching you. So the Tennessee Potter Society provides meetings to gather potters of all experience and skill levels for celebration, preservation, and education to ensure a strong community and a sustainable industry for clay artists. Raise your hand if this is your very first time to be at a meeting. Wow, woo, awesome. We've had 3 meetings, so this is the third one. Is this third? Yeah, third one. Raise your hand if you've been to 1 or 2 other meetings other than this. Yeah. Okay, we're doing something right because you came back, so that's good. The way that it works, if you email me, you are automatically a member of the Tennessee Potter Society, and you will hear from me for the next meeting. We also have a membership listing on the Tennessee Potter Society website, and if you want to have your name, your Instagram, website, business name, all of that listed, then there is a piece of paper up here. Oh, here we go. Jennifer's going to wave it. There it is. That's the piece of paper. If you can fill that out, I will add you to the membership listing on the website. If you just want to add your name, and if somebody's interested in finding you, they can just contact me, and then I can give you their name. So if you're starting out and you just have an email, just don't put your email. I have your email, and I can contact the Tennessee Potter Society, and I will connect you if that happens. So that's how that works. So if you've RSVP'd by email, you're on the list. If you did not RSVP and you just showed up, I think Jennifer got your name, or please email me so I can get you on the membership list. First, raise your hand if you were here for the bowl-a-thon, helping us with our bowls. Awesome. So the spring meeting will always, well, not always, but as of right now, you will bring a bowl donation for the bowl-a-thon. This is for Cooking on the Square, and they sell 3,500 tickets. People get a bowl, then all the restaurants in Cookeville give food, and people walk around with that bowl and they fill it up. They raise enough money to build a house with Habitat for Humanity. Build a house. Amazing, yeah. So when you're over there making bowls and practicing and having fun and knowing you don't have to trim it or glaze it or fire it, know that all that joy is going right directly into a home for somebody. And we are now doing 2 bowl-a-thons a year, and I am conveniently putting them at the same day that the Tennessee Potters Society meets. And today we did 800 bowls. Last spring, we did about 900 bowls. So even with all the efforts we put in, we still are only doing half of the bowls that they sell. But thank you so much for coming in and doing that. Today, you brought in a cup for our Cups of Co-Opportunity event, and that benefits Borderless Arts. What we're doing as a community, a clay community, is I don't want membership dues or money. That's not what we're here about, but you're giving a piece of your work that is definitely benefiting our artistic community in a large way. The Cups of Co-Opportunity benefits Borderless Arts. What we do is we take all your mugs, as well as mugs from our campus artists, our students, our customers of Mid-South. We usually have 300 to 400 mugs to choose from. You definitely up that number for us. And people come in at 7:30 in the morning on Saturday, September the 30th, and they pick a mug. They make a $25 donation, and all the campus artists make sure there's something to put in that mug: coffee, hot chocolate, hot tea, donuts, breakfast. We also have games. We'll have some Borderless artists performing, so you'll get to see actually what they're doing. I asked Lori, who is executive director, to be here to talk to you about Borderless Arts, but she actually was unable to be here because they are having an all-day storytelling event with her Borderless Arts artists. So she asked me to inform you of this. Your donations of mugs and cups support our efforts. Borderless Arts Tennessee is a statewide nonprofit with a mission to enhance school curriculum by using the arts as a tool for students with disabilities, provide engagement for people with disabilities into the community through arts, enrich the lives of people with disabilities through arts activities, and empower people with disabilities to use their artistic talents as potential careers. We offer weekly free programs in dance, music, and visual arts. They come here twice a year and I teach them clay. We have residencies in schools. We provide a statewide music competition, art camps, festivals, performances, and exhibitions. Our visual arts program has had work accepted on every continent. Art accepted by the U.S. State Department's Art and the Embassies program, the United Nations, several area sports teams, and even had art put on an astronaut spacesuit. We are the current Governor's Arts Award winner in arts leadership. We are so grateful to all of you and to the Clay Ladies Campus for creating and supporting Borderless Arts Tennessee with the Cups of Co-Opportunity event. So that's what your mugs and cups are doing, providing these wonderful opportunities with artists with disabilities. We also have the Tennessee Potter Society scheduled for the spring. It's going to be March the 16th. There's on this sheet of paper that I'm holding here, it's on the bottom, it says save the date. And there's all on, as well as the Cups of Co-Opportunity information. We do a couple things here to help you guys learn about each other and meet each other. Everyone has a name tag, and there are stars for every 10 years you have been doing clay. So some of you are just beginning, so you have no stars, and that's okay because the people with stars are going to hunt you down and talk to you. So we have, raise your hand if you have 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, 6 stars. And although I think Susan DeMay should be 7 stars because she started in 4th grade, she didn't want to cheat. So it counts. I would like for the 4, 5, and 6 stars people, raise your hands high one more time. Those of you around the room, these are the legacy members. These are the ones that created the clay community in Nashville. So these are the ones that you want to make friends with while you're here today. There's also conversation topics on the table. If you say, well, I'm not going to go to that person, I don't know what to say to him. There's your whole list of questions that you can ask them. The way that we're going to do our day today, first, Joseph and I are going to be doing a co-panel discussion. Then we are going to get our picture because it's very impressive. So many of you show up. And so Sally Babawi is going to be doing the picture. Then we are going to have our cup exchange, and we have organized it. If you were here for the first cup exchange, it was a little hectic. So we did something a little different for you. So that should be, that is going to be happening after the picture. And then it'll be time for please eat more snacks, conversation, and community building, especially after we have the mug exchange. The reason why it looks like it is this TV set for an NPT set is because I am very fortunate that the Tennessee Association of Woodturners meets here, and they consider the Clay Lady campus their home, and they are letting us use their AV equipment. So Gretchen, say thank you to Gretchen. She's actually going to be recording this because I have high hopes about how great this conversations go with Joseph and I, and we're going to put it on YouTube. So just to let you know, so we did a little set decorating. Joseph and I come from different sides of the clay bridge. I am all self-taught, and I used to kind of apologize for that I was self-taught. And then I realized because I was self-taught, I innovated so many things in a different way other than how it's taught in the universities and college. Those of you that know me, I spent, my entire career teaching children how to make something out of clay the Clay Lady way, which was make and paint with what I call clay paints that are actually slips. They are single fired, and then I deliver them back to the schools. I was teaching 500 to 800 kids a week. I was booked 2.5 years in advance, traveling 2 to 3 hours outside of Nashville. I did that for 30 years before I started putting my efforts here in the campus. However, even though that sounds like really awesome and innovative, I just have to share the reason why I learned about single firing is because I was doing an arts and crafts show, and my kiln that I dug out of somebody's garden shed, the element failed and it wasn't working, and I called Tom Turnbull in a panic and said, oh my God, my pots are not going to be ready for the show. And he said, well, you know, you can just single fire. And that opened up a whole new world for me. So even though I say I'm innovative, even though I'm self-taught, I still rely on my legacy members and on our community. Joseph, for those of you who don't know, is my son. And he went the traditional route of getting his BFA in ceramics. I will share, you kind of went kicking and screaming, but you had to go. So he got his he got his BFA, and we are building this bridge here on the campus with both sides of this. And I would like to introduce you to Joseph. Come on up, Joseph. So now that I'm sitting down, I have turned into a presenter instead of a host. So I'm going to introduce Joseph and tell you a little bit about him, and then we're going to talk about building this bridge with both the community ed, and I tried really hard not to put in social media versus traditional university or college studies, because it really is an and, not a versus. So Joseph, at 30 years old, he has 25 years of teaching experience, beginning at the age of 5 with me, the clay lady. Working at Mid-South Ceramics during all of high school and college, he then received a BFA from the Appalachian Center for Craft in 2017. Since then, he has been working full-time as a very valuable operations manager for the campus, Mid-South Ceramics, and Opulence. Joseph has developed related 2 lines of Opulence glaze, as well as many new colors for the other 3. His knowledge in ceramic chemistry enhances not only Opulence glaze, but is very consequential in all the Clay Lady product lines. A sought-after teacher, Joseph's glaze and kiln workshops are always filled. His studio students receive the best in clay education with his background in community with his BFA. Joseph adds a higher level of experience to the Clay Ladies campus with his teaching, research and development, business management, and soda kiln building. Yeah, we love Joseph being here on the campus. Yeah. Thanks.
And for those of you who do not know, this is Danielle McDaniel, the Clay Lady, and I'm going to introduce her, just in case you don't know who she is as you're sitting on her campus. Danielle McDaniel, the Clay Lady, has dedicated her life to transformative power of art by teaching clay to hundreds of thousands of children, ensuring clay would be taught in classrooms by educating thousands of clay teachers the Clay Lady way. Hers the way of single firing, thanks to Tom Turnbull. She, with the help of a great team over there, all around, has created the Clay Ladies campus, which sees 500 students artist weekly, filling studios, classrooms with enhancing creative endeavors for all ages, all levels, and all circumstances. Danielle the Clay Lady has created a way for clay to be accessible to everyone via videos, books, and seminars at the campus. Take what you think, take what you feel, mix it all up, make something real. I grew up hearing those words when I was 4. Still true in everything we do today. Since 1982, before my time, this motto has been said by the Clay Lady and her students in every class and every workshop. It encompasses her philosophy surrounding the greatness and goodness of being an artist that goes beyond creating a clay project, but asks for the artist to consider the call that artists not only make beautiful things, but they are called to make the world a more beautiful place. And that's what we try to do here all the time.
Yes, awesome. Notice I have a lot of, I tried to put some stats in there to kind of match yours. So we want to visit with you about where we've been in the clay community, where we are, and where are we going.
And I would like to really add to that, mostly as educators. Both of us are educations, and anyone that is in pottery, knows that you not only have been taught, but are a teacher as soon as you touch clay. It is definitely what kind of binds us all together.
That's very true. Well, on this side, this is really the definition of, I think, all learning, but definitely clay learning. Joseph, you want to talk about that?
Don't you want to talk about the photo analogy first?
Sure, let me talk about that. Okay, so
we have notes. We may not follow
Listen,
them.
I'm going to just be honest. We went out to lunch 3 times and we ended up getting into such deep conversation. No outline was made. There was no this is it.
There was
an
an attempt at an outline.
There you go. But we enjoy talking about clay. We decided it's just, that's what we enjoy talking about. So it just kept going on and on until dessert. So the reason why we're having this conversation is because clay has become accessible to everybody. Think about it. With your phone, you can order the clay, order the kiln, order the wheel. You can learn. You can actually keep up with what you've made on your phone. Your phone can even talk to the kiln and make it turn on and turn off. And then you can sell your work with your phone and take the money with your phone. It is accessible to everybody. It didn't used to be that way. Think about photography. Back in the day when photography first happened, you had to know somebody that knew how to work the brown wooden box, knew chemistry, knew how long to guess exposure, how long to guess shutter speed. And then the little Brownie camera came in, the large format film. And then we went to 35 millimeter, where you just took pictures and hoped they turn out. That's before most of your all's time. But you would take like a picture and then you would wait 2 weeks to go get your picture to find out. Then digital cameras came out and there was Photoshop. And that really wasn't considered photography for a little bit, but then eventually it came into where it became an art form. Well, now you don't even need Photoshop because you take a picture with your phone and it will take pictures in the dark. You don't have to know about aperture or shutter speed. It does the portrait for you. You can even cut people out that you don't like out of your picture. So everybody, photographer, or is everybody able to take a picture? And I think that's a distinguishing moment. If you think about, everybody has access to clay and the equipment, but is everybody able to really create a true crafted piece? So that's what Joseph and I are going to talk about. And there is the definition.
And going with that, the framework that every artist goes about learning things. I learned this about 8 years ago, and as I've grown into my teaching, I tried to implement, whether you know it or not, my students, into pretty much any lesson that I do with anybody. And this really holds true between the difference between just being able to take a photo and being able to become a photographer. The way that we learn is through inspiration, wanting to take that photo, seeing beautiful pottery and going, I want to get muddy. I want to have that fun. And then you have to then start to imitate some of the pottery that you admire, some of that inspiration that you find, until you develop the skill, the craft, the craftsmanship. And once you've developed that skill, only then can you start to innovate off of those ideas. Every way of learning has different ways of going about teaching those 3 things and getting you through that process. Some places spend more time in one and some places spend more time in others. But no matter what you do as an artist, that is the framework in which we learn how to become our own unique individual people with our own sense of self in artwork. And we're going to use that as a framework to talk about how things have changed and where they might be, and how we focus on different aspects of that.
Yeah, when Joseph and I talked about this, I said, inspiration, I want to do that. Imitation, I want to do it like you. And then innovation is, I want to do it where everybody knows I did it. And that's, we spend a lot of time in community ed, everybody's real excited. And then you bring, your Pinterest or your phone, I want to do this. And then eventually there comes that hunger, innovate and wanting to be able to do it your own way. So Joseph, I have a question for you. So we started on different sides of the bridge, you being in school, me being self-taught, really not just finding my way via books, workshops, and people and boots on the ground. What was your experience in college?
Well, we first need to start off with my experience before college, because I did start my education way back when by you, being my mentor and teaching me how to do clay work. I started very early on, usually in craft schools, just like the one across the way that a lot of our students here are in. I was in your class in high school. So I started at that point, but then in that experience, I noticed how much inspiration everybody had. Everybody's wanting to try something new every week. There's always something different. There's several teachers to be inspired by and see different ways of making things. As opposed to when I went to school and college, it really does narrow itself down. Traditional master apprentice modality of teaching really starts to implement. And my teacher, as great and as encyclopedic of a knowledge as he had his opinions of one kind of spout, and that kind of spout was the spout. Make variations on that spout, but that was the spout that really came down to being the best spout. As opposed to in community school, every spout was great. Just a matter of how much time and effort you wanted to spend in that. The craft school that I was at the Clay Lakes campus focused much more on the inspiration, but in school, we kind of skipped over the inspiration and went straight into the imitation. That's how you get good. That's how you build your skill. That's how you build your craft. But I found that a lot of my students were lacking a little bit of that inspiration and finding how to research other people and find. And we definitely had our times where we focused on that.
Well, the hardest part with those of you that are students here is to make you make things repetitively. You're all about the inspiration, but you'll get better at 12 of those. Well, I don't want to make 12 of those. I'll make one of those because I'm going to go with this over here. Yeah. So it's all.
Well, and tell me about your experience learning and developing your skills being self-taught.
Well, after 40 years, I'm still in the inspiration space. And I took a clay class and loved it, and it was freeing for me. And those of you that know me know I had a pretty spiritual experience in that the first time I touched clay and it screwed up, and all I had to do was go re-wedge it and start again. It was like the ultimate experience of forgiveness. And so being a perfectionist and an only child of an only child of an only child, there was a lot of pressure to do things right the first time.
For me on that.
There was just a freeing with that. And however, taking that class, and at that time, it was back in the 80s, and there were the legacy members that are in here, there were the professionals, the one that had been taught the right way. And so I always felt a little bit like an outsider. I always felt like that I didn't know what I should have known. I got to work at Mid-South Ceramic Supply, and to me, that was my college. That's where I learned about tools, and I read the books when I was waiting on the phone to ring, and about the chemicals and all the different clays, but everything was trial and error. Everything was, well, that didn't work, let me do it again. And I didn't understand. I didn't have the background of the imitation, like I need to make 100 of those to really get good at it. I just was frustrated because I couldn't make it right the 5th time. So there was a lot of trying to work my way into that level of professionalism that the college experience gave you. However, I never lost my inspiration. And I was always trying to innovate, but I was trying to innovate with no information. And I think that's what we try to do here on the campus, is to give you the information to be able to innovate. And I just was in a silo, really trying to figure it out on my own. Now, I will say that in teaching, I definitely move through all of those. But when it comes to the actual making my work, it was a little bit of a struggle. But I had enough enthusiasm to light the sun, so I worked out okay on that one. How did you feel about the other side of the educational coil when you started college? You had me that everything was awesome, and then yeah. You went and had Vince that only one thing was awesome and you hadn't done it yet.
For those of you that know Vince, I do love him. He's an amazing teacher. Don't want to speak ill of him by any means. I definitely grew my passion for the community of a community craft center. I loved the people. This moment right here that we have is why I wanted to do clay. And there was a little bit lack of that in school. I had a very hard time because The modality and the mentality was you learn the thing, you go isolate in your studio, you do the thing 100 times, and then you come back and you compare your things that you did 100 times. As opposed to in our classes that I still teach in and love, the constant back and forth of, oh my God, look at this. I mean, on Friday, I had half of my class surrounding Sarah, who was making, sorry to point you out, who was making a 25-pound bowl for the first time, and just the amazingness of that community definitely felt lacking in there. But my skills improved dramatically during that time frame. I was such a better potter after a single year, as opposed to the 10 years that I had been dedicated throwing pots before then. And it's just because I had that repetition and that self-isolation to make a thing 100 times. And I can see where that brings a little bit of a insider, oh, you haven't put in your dues yet.
Right.
And it can really feel like I've done my work where these community people haven't done their work yet.
I think a lot of that is still that master apprentice kind of mentality in the universities. And after befriending Cynthia Bringle and getting to spend some time with her, and the first time I went on a week, she's been doing clay for 65 years. And the first time I went and did a week with her, I took my pot lifts in, and I could have melted into looked like melted butter on the floor. It's just like, what are those? She may have not even been that nice about it.
Probably not.
But Cynthia brought in that imitation for me that really, that acceleration of improving my work was unbelievable, just from that. So, you know, the community brings you so much. Community ed brings you this inspiration, and but then with the college there is that imitation, and so I think that's a different focus. I mean, we're here to have fun and enjoy, and you know, get a little therapy while we're at it. And where school was, you need therapy after. So when we compare the 10,000 years of wood kilns to the 70 years of electric kilns, this is a very short segment in the clay world. And if you think about the 70 years of the electric kiln, that's the time of the cell phone, right? I mean, here we had 10,000 years of this master apprentice and how it could have been done. And then, well, you know.
Within 10,000 years, 70 to 20 years is very short.
It could be on the cell
frame,
phone. So what was your experience about learning about clay and firings and all that in your traditional education versus me?
As far as all of that, Vince was an encyclopedia. I mean, anything, any question, this is where I get it from my students. Anything that you could ask him, he would go on a 2-hour lecture just with every bit of information that you could ever need to know. And I try to take that in like a sponge. When I first got into college, like you were saying with the cell phones, there wasn't as much easily accessible data about clay in those first couple of years for me in college. By the end of college, all of the databases had come up, and you could find Glazy and all of these things where it's just all the information's there. And I definitely saw a transition of how students interacted with Vince and the program differently beforehand. Beforehand, it was still that master apprentice. Vince knew all the information. If you had a question, you go ask Vince. Towards the end of it, though, a lot of the students, especially as I was in my senior year, the freshmen coming in, they had questions, they answered it themselves, and then they challenged Vince's answer to what it was. And there was more debate, and I was known especially for doing this, and I apologize to him for that, but it definitely changed things. There was more easily accessible inspiration and information for these students coming in, and that master apprentice of just imitation kind of got broken down a little bit. How would you say the internet and cell phones changed, especially as you were teaching?
So when I first started teaching, there was no internet, and I had a car phone with a big black box underneath my seat because I was on the road so much. So that's where I came from. The biggest influence I had in my pottery class was the movie Ghost. Yeah, everybody wanted to throw a pot like Demi. So no, she actually did. She actually learned how to make pots.
If you watch the movie, only about half of it is actually opened up and the other half is just solid clay at the bottom.
There's the secret.
Hey, no ghosting allowed in our studios. We're going to move on from ghost.
So as the information started happening in class, students would come in and say, I want to make this. And it should go fast for me because I saw this person make it and they made it really fast. And what they're not realizing is they edited out all the bad parts. Yeah, I mean, my videos look great. I had a great editor. I don't talk nice and smooth, and well, now kind of do, but back in the day, I mean, half of it was on the editing floor. And the funny thing about the phone for me now is I'll be in my class teaching, and my students will be watching me on their cell phone, the YouTube. And I'm like, but I'm right here. I promise I'm accessible, I promise. So it is at first I was frustrated with teaching because, you know, my way was the right way. So I didn't have to say, well, yeah, you can also make a handle that way and that way and that way. So it was all up to me to be, you know, the teacher, the leader of the classroom. And so it's been really interesting opening myself up to saying, well, yeah, we could do that. Oh yeah, let's try that. But there is also that moment of, yeah, you can try that, but you're gonna have to edit a little bit of that out because it's not gonna work for you the first time. And to just kind of to temper down the expectations of people because they really think it's going to go that fast and that easy. I will tell you the best thing that I could have ever done for understanding clay and kilns was to send my son to college. Because now, you know, if you've bought it, most of the book came from the good stuff came from my conversations with Joseph. I just Clay Lady simplified it. That's all I did. I kind of edited your experience and made it my own. Wait, imitation. So
that's all we ever do. 2,000 years of pottery, and we don't do anything original.
That's right. But I was probably teaching before I knew what I was doing, and I was firing kilns just because I was told that was the way I did it before I knew what was actually happening in the kiln. There's a lot more, as your understanding deepens, the appreciation and really deepens as well. And understanding our whole art form and the people that came before us, digging the clay and building the kilns, all of that really, there's a kind of a maturing of the artist when you get the whole picture. Yeah. And so I missed out on that.
Would you say that your current students these days have more of that understanding with the access to the internet that they used to, more of that knowledge of the imitation that they needed to have?
Well, it depends on the student, but it's a lot like some people who take pictures with their phones think they're photographers, and some people actually have a real camera and a real lens. So, and I think it's a mixed bag with that. The cell phone is definitely just part of our life, and videos, and now TikTok's even shorter, so people are even making it shorter. So it is a challenge in the classroom. I don't think the level of understanding or knowledge is really deepening, because I think only experience can really do that for you.
That is really true. I mean, and just because the information's there and you have all of this inspiration readily accessible doesn't mean that you can't do it instantly. You do have to put it in practice. You do have to do the research. You do have to understand all of it. And it takes both inspiration and imitation to be able to accomplish, to get to that innovation that we're all seeking so much.
So I think where we are right now, with the influence of videos and the information, the access to information and equipment coming so quickly, we're noticing that a lot of universities are taking clay programs out because you can do it at home in your basement. Who needs a college to learn about clay, because you can buy it packaged, learn how to fire a kiln, because it's all computer now. So we see that happening. And also we see communities like this, we're strengthening, but I think we're strengthening in a different way. A lot of you and a lot of people come to the Clay Days campus, they come to make pots, but they stay for the community.
Very true. I'd also say a lot of the communities are thriving right now because everybody sees Instagram and goes, oh, I can do that. I want to do that. So they want to come in and try it. And then they don't realize how much work it is. You know, the bachelorette parties of Nashville definitely help with some of the thriving artist communities around here.
I think so. And I think that where we are right now is we will not be able to keep the status quo. Because community centers were always about fun, and you're going to make clay, and then you're going to go off to the next thing. And universities were, we're going to make a potter out of you. And I don't think that's happening either. And so really the crux of this conversation is going to be, you know, where are we going? What do we need to do? Because we have universities that are struggling. A lot of clay, community ed is struggling. We're not. But I think that's because we've got the bridge.
I think we've always joked about how we were building this bridge between these two almost seemingly separate ins and outs communities. But I do think, we may be a little biased here because this is the business program that we're building, but I do think that that bridge is what's going to keep us as potters and our fun, the things that we love in clay, thriving. It's by having both that deeper level of education as well as the fun in the community and this, where everybody's here together and talking about the pottery.
And I think just from personal experience and we've already shared a little bit, Joseph was talking about how he went into college, about the inspiration and how much fun this world is, and then had to really, the university learning was very rigid. And then here I am, woohoo, clay for everybody. And then Joseph comes in and shows me the value of rigidity. And we, as a business model, we realized how effective that is as we're looking at how other people are faltering. You know, you think about our clay community, people come here for pots, but then they also realize that this is a place they can be themselves, they can unplug from the rest of their world. Being creative is not really something that's done in people's hobby life. You know, most of our hobbies watching Netflix and trying to find their way into that that kind of what I call the bliss bubble. That place that you can only find when you're actually creating. And so I think that we have to meet those needs. But after a potter makes so many pots, sessions, and you've learned how to make the handle, then what? And that's where the university model jumps in, because the university model is teaching you a skill to
Not sure where you were quite with that, but
to be a potter, to be a teacher.
Yeah, there's several different paths that you can be taken down with that, and that imitation to innovation cycle really does help you to figure out where you're going with this so that you can stay in your community. Because if you reach the point that you're not progressing in your community, in your craft and your trade, usually what we have seen is people then start to isolate. They take their studio home, they just keep making their pots at home, and eventually they come out to a craft show or something like that. Those are even becoming more hard to get. And having the next step, that those level up classes that we do as masters, we're really educating on the history, the science, and the people who have been doing this for 4 to 7 stars worth of education. That is where that depth of knowledge will come to keep your community strong enough for you to keep going.
Because I think that we need to realize that if we're not going, like, you know, I have a lot of retired people in my classes, and they don't need to make pots to sell to pay their mortgage. You know, that's kind of done. They're ready to just make pots and enjoy life, enjoy the process, enjoy the making. However, you know, we all know the cabinet gets kind of full, doesn't it? And then you think, well, I've made so much, maybe I need to quit making. And so what we realize is we have to put some challenges in front of our students and some challenges in front of our community to make a cup for Cupsicle Opportunity, or to make something for the birds, which we have as our student challenge this quarter, to take a master's class and spend the day with one of our master teachers so they can learn. It's not just about teach me how to make this, but what is it like living the life of a potter? What is it like? Why do you make pots? And get to that deeper level of understanding. It's not just, I want to make a pot like you, but I want to have this experience of what it was like when you made that pot. I want that in my life. And so that's what we try to provide here as we balance, this is so fun, to this is so hard. We got to find something right there in the middle, that sweet spot. And I think that's what's going to save the clay industry. I think art centers are going to have to rise up, and I think universities are going to have to chill out a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I do think that combining the two different ways of doing things and unifying the two ways of going about, bringing in that fun, then challenging, and keeping that imitation is going to what creates our place that we can be and really innovate.
And there's, just as a matter of conversation, the university, you make mugs, you smush them, you wedge it up, and you make more. We in a community class, we make things and we keep them and we keep them and we keep them and we keep them. And then we have clay that we want to reclaim, and we just go buy a new bag. And we're producing instead of learning. And you can produce thousands of mugs, but learning, I had to say that sometimes students come in, I want to learn, I want to make pots, but eventually you have to transition that to, I want to learn how to make pots. And sometimes that involves some of this university thought that you squish it up and wedge it and start again, or you make several of them. Just because you make 100 doesn't mean you're keeping the 100. It means you're making 100 and you're keeping the one you like. And I think the community centers can bring some of that into the conversation.
So keeping this in mind, if
Yes.
you were to see a random person wanting to do pottery at any skill level, at any place, what kind of advice would you give them?
Take a class, yeah. Get in with people, learn about it, sit next to someone who's done it for a while. Don't just sit in your basement watching YouTube. Talk to people and learn it, and get your hands muddy. You think about clay, it's truly centering and grounding, and we need that so much in our day-to-day life right now. You think about clay is the only medium that you actually touch. Everything else has a tool between you and it. Painting, you have a tool. There's something between you and the medium. And so, that inspirational part of me will never die, because I remember when I touched clay and how it transformed me. And so that I would immediately say, do it. But I also would say, go in making pots, having fun, but eventually change your mind, and you need to start thinking about learning how to make good crafted pots. We all get to make that, keep our first ugly pot because we love it, and that's good. But then there comes a time that you have to pay attention.
We call those our ugly babies in my class.
Ugly babies.
Yeah, they're very ugly, but we love them so much.
Yeah, you can have a cup or a mug, and then you can have a cup or a mug that the rim is just right, the weight is just right, the shape will hold the liquid you're putting into it, the handle fits, it's big enough, the glaze is well applied. That's what we're trying to find is that. So I think we come to make pots, and then we stay for the community, and then we get bored, and then it's time to pull in some of the imitation innovation into the things. So Joseph, I'm going to ask you a question, and then we're going to open up for question and answers. But I would like to ask you, Joseph, how do you help a student get to the next level of thought about their pots?
My general advice for a student coming on board into the pottery world is be the dog chasing the squirrel. Find everything that you find fascinating and chase it down. Go every direction all at once, everywhere, all the time. And then figure out which of those directions you actually liked, and then focus on those. And then figure out which of those directions you actually liked and focus on those. And keep narrowing it down till you have perfected the few directions you actually enjoy, and then go just dig a little bit further. Go a little bit further and innovate and figure out what you want after that. It all starts from trying everything at least once.
And do know that we try to offer you those opportunities. We have skills building workshops to where, we can teach you how to center, and then we have a skills building workshop or a level up workshop where we spend an hour and a half talking to you about centering. Yeah, and we have skills building where you're not making a project, but you're learning how to use the materials and have better understanding of what those materials can do. We have master series workshops. So we offer these opportunities. So if you're a student and you're getting a little bored, you may be crossing the line from inspiration to imitation or imitation to innovation, because frustration is usually the first sign I need to do something different. And so if you find that you're in class and you're not as comfortable or as happy as you used to be, it's probably because you're in a growing pain, not because pottery is not for you. So keep that in mind, because it is endless. Those of you, my legacy members, raise your hand if you've learned something about your medium and your craft, like in the last year. Just learned already. There it is. See, Lee knows everything. She's got it. But I've been teaching pottery for 40 years. I taught someone something the other day and went, oh, well, yeah, that makes better sense. I mean, even I am still learning, and that's what we have to commit to, is that lifelong learning. She has her BFA, but it's not in clay. She's all community taught with clay. And she said the one thing she thinks there's a difference in is the critique.
Can I talk about this one?
Yes, yeah, I know you well enough. This is a good one. That's a good one.
So in my Friday night class, I make an exaggerated point of how hard critique can be. And I do firmly believe that is because the students are usually the ones giving the critiques, but the students are not well trained on critiques when they're giving the critiques. In order to train students how to give critiques, here at the campus, we've started doing what I call show and tell. So everybody shows and tells about their piece. I usually make them talk about one thing they really like about the piece and one thing that they can improve about the piece. And then usually we go around the table and it opens up to what kind of history everybody has had with similar processes instead of talking about the individual piece. So I really do try, in the community setting, coming from the university perspective, of training people how to critique as opposed to just critiquing the piece, because that'll allow for the conversation to open up later on for individual critiques from your friends and peers along the way. Because BFA critiques are very difficult. Yeah, a lot of that therapy that came after college came from critiques. Yeah. What would you like to add to about critiques?
Well, I do know that I've had students that have gone through a master's program and have almost come out broken afterwards. And I wonder if it's not their critique. I wouldn't have survived it. It's not the best one, it's the best in each one. That's Clay Lady. Usually I wait for a student I call it asking me to cross the line. Like they'll say, okay, tell me about this, because up to that point they have so much joy and love for the piece, and so they tell me the piece. But I fall right into the craftsmanship, and so my critique is usually, let's look at the rim, let's look at the foot, let's look at and go into that whole the craftsman part and the functionality. You want to eat rice out of this bowl, it's kind of deep and round for that. And so not having gone through the critique experience, I think I probably just do a kinder, gentler mom kind of moment with my students.
I will also say a part of that not knowing how to critique usually comes out in the master apprentice of like, my spout is the only correct spout, but then it's a student telling another student that, oh, your bowl is not the right shape of bowl for rice. and
Right.
you are terrible because you chose poorly. So instead of what I try to encourage with my students of, okay, let's workshop the different kinds of bowls and why did you want to do that bowl as opposed to other things? And definitely by the end of college, the critiques got a lot better and more helpful, but that freshman critique is rough.
I think I'm glad I skipped over that.
So in addressing how to take a critique from your work, the thing that you have to remember is that if you are, usually what I do with my students is I ask them 1 to 10, how hard of a critique do you want? And usually if you ask me for a 10, it's really not a full 10. It's really, you got to ask for a 15 for like the full critique experience if you want. Just FYI in the future, you
Does
guys.
15 mean tears? Like, is it no tears to tears?
It really gets into the weeds of things.
Okay.
How to take critique is know where you are on that 1 to 10 scale. Are you ready? In the beginning, your ugly babies, they're precious to you. You know that they have faults, but you don't want to hear about those faults in that moment. When you're at a 10, you're kind of disassociated. I've made 100 bowls. That's just another bowl. Tell me how I can make this bowl the bowl I actually want it to be. And talk about how, and if somebody starts going off of, oh, that's not a good rim, ask them, how do I make this rim achieve the goal that I want it to achieve? Whether that's for drinking purposes or holding soup in or things like that. Come with counter questions to the points that people make to your critique.
And I think at the beginning, our pots are so personal because we put so much of ourselves into it. And I think you're right. After there's a dilution later, after you've made so many and you get the vision, you look at it and go, oh, but most of the time you have to help a student see it, because they're still seeing it with their emotional brain. They're not seeing it with their eyes yet. And so we have to, sometimes I'll just say, okay, well, you look at it and you tell me. Yeah, but it's not about the artist, it's about the level of craftsmanship and of skill experience.
The purpose of critique that I find is I have a goal, I have something I want to do. Make a perfect mug for drinking hot cocoa. But I find my craftsmanship is not achieving that. And so you ask your peers how to get to that next stage to better achieve my goals. If you come at critique as how seeking help to better achieve the things that you want to do and not just how to make it so you'll achieve what you want.
Well, and one thing I will say, a critique can only happen face to face, not from YouTube. So keep that in mind. Really, education comes from face to face and someone giving you the knowledge that they have that you don't have. And sometimes that's telling you about doing it wrong. But you have to think about all the instructional videos on YouTube are always, this is how you do it, not, wow, you could have done that differently. And so keep that in mind, that if you're doing a face-to-face with somebody, a critique is really a helpful tool for that. I don't know if Tom remembers telling me this, but Tom said the best tool a potter can have in his toolbox is a hammer, because once you hammer half of the ugly ones, you're immediately 100% better. And the NCECA, I think that's actually when our conversation started, because when we went to NCECA 10 years ago, it was all college level artists. And here's Clay Lady showing up. And, I was definitely an out. Two NCECAs that we've gone to, those college educated students are fading out, and it's more of us community ed people that are showing up at NCECA. I mean, the industry is changing, and we are on the precipice of that industry changing because everything is accessible. You don't have to know somebody special to get your pot fired. You don't have to go dig your clay. And it's that accessibility that's changing our industry. And I think that what we need to just keep in mind is just because it's accessible doesn't mean that we don't need to also educate ourselves and have that level of craftsmanship that can be the difference between our industry continuing in a good path versus it just turning into, dessert.
Advice that I got about a decade ago from Patrick Green was, it's not cheating if it works. And if you do something 100 times and you're able to make the thing you want to make after those 100 times, it worked. It's not cheating, just because bad habits are habits that keep you from doing the things you want to. And if you do something 100 times and you're able to achieve the thing you want to, you will have developed the skill you needed to make the thing you wanted to make. With bigger pieces especially, smaller pieces we can out-muscle, and you can get away with not using the right leverage of your body and all of that. And if you're able to develop the muscle big enough to keep that going as you get to those bigger pieces, that's great. It's mostly those bigger pieces challenge what your body can do physically. And I'm a big believer that you can throw anything with any amount of muscle strength as long as you're able to leverage your body against it. And when it comes to the bad habits at the small form versus the big forms, I'm a little bit more make sure I do the right thing when I throw something big, because I don't want to put too much muscle behind it. But whenever it comes to smaller pieces, sometimes I outmuscle things. Sometimes I have bad habits according to Vince, but they work. And I'm able to make the forms that I want to on the small scale, and I just have a slightly different way of throwing at the bigger scale, because I did 100 different repetitions when it was bigger.
And I would say, bad habits: poke holes through pots, make bottoms too thin, make the tops wiggly, make them uneven. Good habits: make a pot.
Unless you want to poke holes or have wobbly
Well,
rims.
but you have to learn how to do it tight, then you get to go loose. That's what I heard. You guys have been very patient as we've talked about it. Know that what we're trying to do at the campus is to create that space for that deeper learning, as well as the community and that inspiration. We want to take you through these steps. And I'm just going to repeat myself one more time. The inspiration: I want to make pots. Imitation: I want to make pots like you. Innovation: I want to make my own pots that are distinguished from anybody else. And if you are frustrated, find where you are in here and get to the next, and get some information, some training to get you to the next step, because growing pains are painful, but you also are able to grow out of that frustration.
A bit of advice that you gave me back in the day?
Well, yes, that's not on our notes, so I'm kind of scared.
It's not. Oh, you're fine. You know what this is.
Oh, good. Okay.
If a pot dies or
Yes.
doesn't do the thing that you want it to do, it gave its life to teach you something. Learn from it, make the next pot better.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joseph. This was great. So I have to tell you, Joseph definitely has made me a better potter and a better clay lady. And I just so appreciate you being part of my world. I think that the campus is in really good hands and will probably outlast both of us, and how fortunate I am to know that.
Hopefully it outlives us both by a long shot.
That'd be awesome.